Hello. Now, ever since I posted that NA versus EU community contributor show match at T6, I've had requests of actually playing the Farragut in ranked. Now, I could no longer play ranked at tier 6 on my main or on my alt on Umalf or El Gringo Potato, which I changed the name to. So I decided, what the hell, I might as well make an account on NA, because I figured it'd be fun to see what kind of meta it is and how different things are on NA and so forth, test different things out. So I made an NA account, and it didn't take really many games to reach Farragut, and started playing some ranked on it to see how it goes. Now, the Farragut in ranked is, especially of course in the T6 bracket where there's no risk of being up-tiered and so forth, this ship is definitively a bully. You can kind of lead the way for your team. You see I got spotted, so that means there has to be a Mutsuki close by, since that's the only thing that can outspot me. Or well, a Farragut with a 15-point captain maybe can, but I'm not really expecting that. So of course I instantly pick a fight with the Mutsuki, force him to smoke up. I'm not personally smoking up, because only if he gets undetected and I'm still spotted will I consider it. But in general, you're very agile and quick, and you can easily become undetected just by sailing into cover. Now, turning away, of course, since he torped as soon as he saw me, that's something you should expect enemy DDs when they turn away like that, give flat out broadside. And I'm still not wasting my smoke, because there's really no need for it. And I've kind of bullied the Mutsuki away from the cap, and I've secured it for my team. And that's kind of one of the things you want to be doing. And why I value Farraguts, especially in this T6 ranked, highly. Like, this is my go-to carry ship for T6 ranked. I just feel it's so strong, and people aren't really good. Enemy DDs aren't really that good at dodging, or enemy DDs aren't that good at dealing with the gunboat that comes at you like that. They usually just torp. They don't really understand to use the guns, and battleships and cruisers in general, they don't really expect the torps from a Farragut, because the torps on the Farragut are very short range. They're 6.4, but with optimal positioning you can still make them work. In fact, I will show off the torps multiple times in this, where I will launch the torps undetected simply thanks to my positioning more than anything else. And of course, well, the Cleveland earlier just ate 3 torps. And of course, seeing as this other guy smoked up, I'm just going to park in his smoke, and I'm going to start hammering this New Mexico, because why not? You want to be dealing damage at all times, and that's exactly what I'm doing. That was the Cleveland, flooded to death from the 3 torps he ate earlier. The Mutsuki might still be around, but I kind of doubt it. I'm pretty sure I scared him away. So I'm just gonna relocate. Pushing through the south here, where they're all waiting, is of course a bad decision. You don't want to push into positions where you don't have any sort of backup in ranked. You want to engage enemy DDs where lots of your enemy friendly ships can fire and help you. And if I were to push down south through this gap and start picking a fight with them down there, well, they would all be able to shoot at me. But if an enemy DD popped up, all these guys would be able to shoot at me, but almost no one from my fleet would be able to help me to shoot the Mutsuki. So that's obviously a really bad position to pick a fight, so I'm just going to relocate and go around the north. Usually it's smarter to take the slightly longer but safer path than go out of your way to take like silly risks. Oh, hello, New Mexico. Once again, did not waste my smoke, did not see any need. Both Mutsukis are spotted, which is excellent. I know exactly where they are now. And yeah, once again, you've seen I haven't really used the smoke yet, because there hasn't been any need. I feel one of the biggest issues with DDs is their over-reliance on smoke for themselves. They tend to waste the smoke like very easily. As soon as they get detected, they smoke up, and you don't always need to panic smoke like that. Sometimes it might be smart to save it for a more opportune moment. For example, in this case, this New Mexico obviously wants to cross into B. I am spotted, so that means there's a Mutsuki here. I'm going to see if I can chase him off first. Okay, the Mutsuki is running away. Then I'm just going to smoke up and slow down. Oh, there's a Mutsuki. So I see him on the minimap, but I'm just going to smoke up and full reverse, because most likely the Mutsuki torped, and there's a high chance of those guys shooting. In general, you want to move after you've smoked, because you don't want to sit still and get torped. In this case though, these lower tier guys, they aren't really used, once again, to this torping, especially, well, this T6 in general isn't exactly the highest skill ship. I often say that in T6 it's more about the captain than the ship. and this really kind of shows it off. I kind of want to set the fire on him here, but actually against New Mexico's and most of the battleship, you actually want to use AP on. I only want the fire. Now that I have the fire, there's the torps I spoke about that kind of predicted. I got my 2 fires, now I'm going to switch to AP, and you'll see how much damage AP actually does. People always get surprised when I shoot battleships with like Farragut AP, and they see 2.5, 2.6k, whereas HE dealt almost no damage. And they're suddenly surprised when you're dealing a 2-3k per volley, and they don't expect it at all. Because close range, when you aim slightly above where the broadside belt is, you deal very heavy damage, and it's always worth going for it. This Nuremberg seems to be pushing up, so, well, my smoke lasts ages. It's US smoke. Once again, one of the advantages the US smoke has over Mutsuki smoke is that it has very long duration. So I'm just taking pot shots at anything I can while it's still active, since if I used it, I want to get the most value out of it. Against the Nuremberg, it's kind of which one you want to use. Nuremberg is so squishy that you can pretty much use HE on it just as well as AP, especially at this range, because it's so squishy, so lightly armored, that your HE does pretty much full damage. It's not mitigated by what little armor he has at all, so you can just wail away with your HE, and you might get the additional fire. Well, I didn't even need it in this case, he just melted. Nuremberg is pretty much the only ship that I never recommend for anyone, because it's just so weak. Honestly, you can angle all you want, but you'll still get citadeled. It has the guns in the back, which makes it awkward for pushing, and that kind of kiting stuff doesn't really work in the slow tier rank because people don't understand the kite as a team. There are multiple issues, and I just don't recommend the Nuremberg for this T6 ranked at all. It's in my opinion probably the weakest T6 ship. Like I'd rather even see an Independence or something than I see a Nuremberg, because at least the Independence can have some sort of impact on the game. Now, of course, I'm closing in. There's still a Mutsuki around here somewhere. One of the Mutsukis was north, but I'm keeping an eye out. Switching all my guns to one side, of course. You always want to keep track of which side your guns are on when you're sailing around in one of these USDDs. Yes, the turret traverse is very quick, but if it becomes to a DD knife fight, having all your guns on the side and knowing which side they're on is a distinct advantage. Now, he's obviously over there. I don't have to worry anymore. Once again, as I did earlier with the battleship, I'm going to use the terrain to my advantage. It's time to smoke up, drop my speed, I don't want to get detected. And once again, predictive volleys, I see he's turning. When the white is moving like that, the white predictive thing is moving, that means they're turning, so you should aim a bit in front of it. I don't want to shoot him because I don't want to tip him off. I'd rather take shots at that DD, see if I can soften him up. At this point, it's too late for this New Mexico to properly dodge anymore. I'm shooting some HU on him, hoping to get him to repair a fire. Battleships tend to often panic repair the first fire, something I never recommend. But he's gonna eat all my torps, so I'm just gonna start focusing on the Mutsuki at this point. And that's another torpedo kill on this poor New Mexico. In general, the thing I have noticed is that US battleships are surprisingly popular on American server. I guess there's some patriotism involved there, but at least in ranked, I swear I see New Mexicos, and in higher tier ranked I constantly see North Carolinas. That's nice. I managed to secure the Mutsuki as well, so I got Kraken, which is of course, getting Kraken in ranked is always satisfying. And I haven't really taken any damage yet, because even though I've been playing very aggressively, I've still been playing safely, even though it has been an aggressive style. Whenever there's been need, I've used my smoke, but I've never really wasted a smoke. Some compliments for my team, which is of course always appreciated, but I don't think I'll have time to hunt down that last guy, because the game is about to end right now. How many points do you get per tick in tier 6? Oh yeah, it's 9. Is it the same in the... oh, I don't even remember. Anyways, this was like, well, of course the T6 is kind of lower tier rank, whatever. But this is good way, I kind of leveled up my Farragut just playing ranked in general. And I might as well show you another game while I'm at it. Right, decided another good example would be one where there's a carrier. Now, as usual, I tend to type quite a lot in chat at the beginning. I want to like give people a plan. If they follow it, nice. If they don't, well, in ranked, especially lower tiers or lower, like higher ranks, you just don't expect people to follow, but it would of course be nice. Here I'm trying to be exceptionally helpful for my team. I'm telling them, I'm asking the Mutsuki to scout for us. and I'm going to smoke up, make this long smoke corridor. You see from this island, I'm gonna make, this is actually a very, very good tactic on this map. You start smoking right here at the edge, and then you smoke all the way to the cap. That way your ships will be able to sail all the way to the cap completely undetected, and if anyone goes into B, they get free firing arcs at everyone entering B from smoke cover. And this is of course a fantastic way for a USDD to support a team, and extremely helpful. But of course the thing with, once again, ranked is you can lead the sheep to the pond, but you can't make them drink. And this is pretty much a stereotypical example of, well, none of my ships understand to actually sail for that smoke corridor, and they're zigzagging left and right. Mutsuki is deciding to go for B alone, which is highly risky considering they have a carrier and he'll have no support to Cleveland. I don't even know where he's sailing. The battleships in general are moving extremely slowly, as like it's just not speed, but people tend to be very sluggish getting in. They're afraid of being the first guy to push in. I'm asking for backup because of course leaving a DD alone here in the cap is a huge problem, because if they decided to come to this cap and I had to fight an enemy DD, if the enemy DD has his team here, they will wreck me, especially since I'm without smoke. The team effort I did there left me without smoke, so I really have no escape if I get jumped. And the worst part is, if you look at the minimap, only one of the ships, the Cleveland, understood to actually use my smoke corridor. The rest of them are sailing next to it, which of course does not protect them from being spotted by the planes. So this was the only time on the NA server that I actually tried to make a team effort with smokes on my Farragut. And this was the game that also made me decide that in T6 it's better to simply be selfish and focus on carrying the game alone and saving your smokes mostly for yourself, or if someone actually asks for it, and then you know they will actually make use of the smoke. But in general, in these lower tiers, people have so little strategical or tactical awareness that it's simply not worth wasting your own consumables on them. Of course, seeing as I saw the Farragut smoke up, I'm going to see if I can sneak up a bit closer. The planes have also just disengaged, so I'm going to see if I can get a bit of harassment going in here. I picked this game especially not just because to showcase how little your team will actually, or how kind of pointless it is to try to do anything more involved. I will point out the mistakes of my team quite often in this, because they make numerous Mutsuki sailing away instead of staying here and supporting me. These cruisers, look, my entire team is hiding outside the cap zone instead of pushing in and helping. It's just really bad play from them in general. You want to go into this middle area, you want to take control of it, and then you punish the enemy team as they try to push in and so forth. But whatever. I managed to get the nice little jump on the Mutsuki here, which is of course great. I don't have my smoke yet, but I don't really need my smoke right now. Dropped some smoke on the battleship, and in general I'll be able to hammer him. This Mutsuki of course is one of those IGN DDs that have never even heard of their guns. Mutsuki, now he finally fires. Mutsuki guns are fairly bad, but it's still worth opening fire if you're spotted like he is. Instead he wasted time torping, and that's very iffy to actually land any torps on a DD that's actively dodging them and aware of it. So he ate a massive amount of damage, which was good. My team is still making some highly questionable decisions of where they want to go and what they want to do, but that's okay. I also picked this map, I did get to tell. I also picked this because of course carrier makes DD life significantly harder, since there's always that additional risk of being spotted. Once again, getting some torps up on the New Mexico, trying to make him use his repair. Another DD pushes out, which is kind of strange considering I was just spotted here. Guess he wasn't aware or his smoke might be fading. Regardless, once again I'm using an offensive smoke, and I'm using the spotting granted by this plane to, well, basically help me spot him and help me wreck him. Now you look at my battleships, you see they are sailing all the way around the island and basically steering as far away from the battle as possible, which is pretty classic battleship. When battleships don't know how to play, that's kind of how they tend to play. They're very awkward, they're afraid to push in, they're afraid to use their armor, they're afraid to tank and so forth. That's pretty typical. And the cruisers, they're kind of sitting in the base, not really doing much either. So it's kind of up to me to secure this mid presence and actually try to make some sort of plays for this cap in general. Of course, if the enemy team wanted, they could just group up and push down either the two battleships or push down the two cruisers, because they're so split up and all over the place. but since they are pretty much just as lost as these guys, there's no need. Cleveland is such a lightly armored cruiser, there's no point really switching to AP. Usually, if this was Nuremberg, I'd switch to AP at this range for the citadels. Or if it was Budionny, I'd do the same. But Cleveland is lightly armored all across, so HE will deal significant damage to him. Of course, when you play like I do here, you have to keep a constant eye on your smoke timer, so you really want to make sure you can get out and you don't get caught with your smoke still ticking. A good way of keeping track of it is looking down at your smoke, and when keeping in mind when it ends. You see I'm just moving out just before it's popping. And now when the smoke pops behind me and I actually get spotted, I'm already well on my way out of here, and I'll get behind the cliff and undetected without any bigger issues. And if you play like I do, basically, you play very aggressively with these DDs. You want to make sure you keep an eye on that, because being stuck in the middle of the enemy lines with your smoke running out and you're not even accelerating yet, that's kind of a death sentence for a DD. Normally I wouldn't have fired in that situation, but since I was kinda line of sighted from all their big threats and the Cleveland was so far away, I didn't mind trading some health with the Farragut, because I trust my aim to be able to come out superior. Now I'm calling target on this Farragut, hoping that all these ships around me will help me. But sadly the New Mexico is going up the 2 line behind them into their spawn for some reason. Our cruisers are still miles away where they can't really help. They're sitting in our base trying to snipe or something, being useless. And this battleship next to me isn't shooting, and the Mutsuki is trying to torp instead of actually using his guns to kill this guy. But once again I secure him as well, so now I've managed to kill both their DDs, which is pretty important for winning the game, removing the enemy DDs. At this point of course I smoke up, since the threat has been passed, and I don't want to get wrecked by this New Mexico, who's clearly loaded HE just for me. He gets a really good hit in the smoke. I'm just gonna set some fires on him. I'm tempted to torp, but I'm kinda saving it a bit, because I knew he would make some maneuvers there. That guy looks so dead, and I just noticed on the minimap, once again that's where you keep an eye out on the minimap. I noticed that the Cleveland had grounded, so obviously I switched target to him. Because the New Mexico is dead, there's no way he's going to reach me in the smoke in time, and I have my second set of torps if he does. Whereas something like a Cleveland can be a big threat, but if he's grounded, he's quite easy to hit. And as you can see, even with HE, I do significant damage every time I land shells on him. That was the New Mexico being killed in the back with that volley I launched, so there was no need for me to focus on him when I could instead be harassing this Cleveland. Our New Mexico is still on his adventure in the enemy base, probably hasn't shot at anything in a good while. And our 2 cruisers in base, well, one of them has finally understood to move up to the cap. The Cleveland is still sailing around in the base, so this is kind of what you have to get used to. In general, the average player will rarely understand to support the DDs. Usually when they get higher tier, people understand that having your DDs alive and the enemy DDs dead is pretty much an automatic victory for your team, because you have the smoke advantage, torpedo advantage, all of this, which contribute hugely to victories. But in lower tiers, people don't really understand this, and they don't really understand how to support the DDs either. So they make this kind of they make decisions based on what's the best for themselves, instead of like making team-based decisions. The Cleveland in base got killed, not surprisingly, and right now I'm just going to move towards B while taking pot shots at this New Mexico. Even if I do get spotted here, I'm not too worried at this distance. New Mexico, as I've very recently made a New Mexico commentary, the dispersion is what it is on it, and in general I'm fairly confident in my dodging ability. He would need some really good RNG to actually hit me, and I wouldn't necessarily deal this additional damage if I wasn't fairly confident in my team's win. But at this point I felt like I've already done so much that it will be very hard for my team to throw this game away. Now you see he's shooting at me, so I turned into the shells. Pretty good way of dodging them. And I'll just continue hammering him as I push into this cap. The Farragut DPS is actually surprisingly good. Once again, I turn out this time. Turning out is rarely as good. As you can see, I ate a hit, which was unfortunate. But I'm just gonna keep pushing in here and keep hammering him with these shells. still haven't smoked. Once again, I only have one smoke left, and I'd rather save it for something extremely life-threatening than something that maybe might possibly kill me. Once again, he's shooting at me. This time I turned in and managed to dodge the shells without issue. I'm just constantly harassing him and of course closing the distance with their carrier at the same time. It's not like I'm aimlessly sailing about, but I have a very definitive goal in mind, and that's the carrier that has been spotted on the minimap. Now, as a DD, you don't want to be the guy who runs off and starts hunting the carrier, but in this case I've already secured the primary objectives of a DD, which is I have kept both the bases and I have eliminated the enemy DDs. You can do this either through spotting the enemy DDs or just straight up killing them like I did. But until those two objectives have been completed, you should never ever run off and hunt the CV. I can't even, like, the amount of games I've lost when my DDs have run off to hunt the enemy carrier far too soon in the game. The carrier really isn't that big of a threat. Yes, a good carrier player can be a threat, but if you go off hunting him, first of all, if he's a good carrier player, you're most likely not even going to succeed, so the whole idea of going off hunting him is a waste of time. Rather focus on bringing all your tools to help the team, which is smoke and torpedoes and spotting and all this. Use that to help the team instead of the fact that you might be able to sneak up on the carrier, because anyone can go kill the carrier if we get to that point in the game. It's not some special magical power that only the DDs possess. But for some reasons DDs are extremely obsessed with running off to go and kill him. I'm actually going to get this kill. I'll shoot Centaurus just in case. 983. Looks like the game is about to end. 992. Definitely looks like the end. And the game ended there. I don't even know how much damage I did ultimately. No Kraken this time, but this was like a few games later, I think. But it was a good example because of the carrier interaction. Once again, good XP. And it also, look at my New Mexicos. Those two who were sailing all over the place. You can see how dead weight players sometimes are, and if you really want to advance, you just have to accept the fact that sometimes you simply have to carry these players around, and that's the only way to advance.